First Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. What's up, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes.
Oof, coming on strong, Sinistar. And man, I am tired of that intro. Just a couple weeks ago, I was like, that's not that bad. So hate the sound of my own voice now. Gosh darn it. Years of that. Matt Thorson, how are you?
Hey, I'm great.
That's great. Thank you for joining us on the show this week. You must be very busy. You're in the middle of huge success and making more of a game. At least that's what I've read on Twitter anyway.
Yeah, I've been traveling a lot. I just got back from Vegas for EVO, showing Towerfall. And yeah, I'm still working on the game too. So lots happening.
How was EVO for you? Was this your first EVO?
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It was my first EVO. Yeah, it was amazing. EVO's like a perfect fit for Towerfall.
Yeah, but I'd imagine that a lot of people at EVO may not know that until they've actually tried it. As Towerfall, for those that don't know, it's a arena-based competitive game, but kind of a warm local competitive experience, at least so far. For me, that's how it's been. Up to 4 people, a lot of projectile attacks, and rationing of your ammunition. And it's not a traditional fighting game per se, but you brought it to EVO, and how did they seem to take to it there?
Oh, it was received really well. There was a lot of players. I think a lot of Smash players enjoyed it. It's more similar to Smash Bros. But there were some players I saw come up with their fight sticks, so they were playing like Persona or Street Fighter or whatever, and a lot of them really liked it, so that was cool.
Did you find that they were open to the fact that it wasn't what they were used to? From what I know of the fighting game community, there's some aspects of it that are incredibly strict about like what is and what isn't a fighting game, and can be very exclusive and excluding to people that try to push those boundaries or introduce something to that community that's foreign to them. Did you experience any of that side of it?
I didn't really see that, but I think we're kind of shielded from it because if someone's approaching the indie booth, they're kind of already open to seeing what we're doing, and the indie games aren't traditional fighting, except Skullgirls, but that wasn't at the indie booth. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. What other games were at the indie booth?
Barabari Ball, Samurai Gun. Yeah, it's a great company to be around. Super Space Blank was awesome. Aztez. Yeah, some great games.
Awesome. And I've noticed that there's this upsurge of local co-op or local competitive games that are taking the kind of essence of fighting games, but making it more accessible, but at the same time keeping the depth in. Have you picked up on that happening, or is it just me?
Yeah, no, I think that's even predates Towerfall a bit with like Samurai Gun and Barabari Ball as well. Actually, those are probably the 3 main games are probably those in Towerfall. But just even at game jams, I've noticed a lot of people are thinking along those lines these days. I think people are just ready for it to come back.
Yeah, it seems like it. And prior to Towerfall, you'd made a lot of platformers, you made a lot of kind of sole player experiences. But Towerfall is branching out for you. What motivated you to try this new direction?
I've been thinking about multiplayer design for a long time. I just never really had a way to do it, I guess, an outlet for it. I've played TF2 for years. I love TF2. Another game that got me really into thinking about multiplayer design was Vogue. He made Samurai Gun, but before Samurai Gun, he made Zero Space. Mm-hmm. I went to Tig Jam in San Francisco, I guess it was 2 years ago now, and I played a lot of Zero Space there, and it just really started like kickstarting the local multiplayer part of my brain, I guess.
Yeah, Bo Blythe, we had him on the show. He's a wonderful young man. He's sparked a lot of smaller developers into focusing on the 4-player co-op thing, or 4-player competitive. But you don't do it in the Samurai Gun way at all.
No.
To me, Towerfall is a very different kind of experience. It puts me in a headspace of a lot more. It makes me more afraid of my mistakes, but more excited about capitalizing on the mistakes of others.
Right.
Where Samurai Gun is like very like I have to like react just at the right time. It makes me feel like very zen. Whereas Towerfall puts me in more of like a strategic master plan kind of outworking strategy.
Yeah.
Was that intended? Did you try to? Was it a goal of yours to not do what Bo was doing with Samurai Gun and what other people are
Um,
doing with?
I actually didn't play Samurai Gun at all before I started Towerfall. Um, Not on purpose. I just didn't get around to it.
Sure.
I think it's just a function of our different design styles. I think like Towerfall to me feels like if you take one of my older platformers and just try to make it multiplayer. I've gotten way better at making games since then, but in general, I think it shows that it's my style.
Huh. Yeah, I could definitely see that. And for people that don't know, you've been making video games for how long now?
I guess 9 years. Yeah, since I was 14.
What? That's so. Were you still in high school?
Yeah, definitely in high school. I think maybe no, not elementary school. Definitely high school.
Wow, that's intense. And have you been making games pretty rarely since then?
Yeah, pretty regularly. Pretty much always. I never really knew. Didn't really have an idea that it would be how I'd be making my money. I always just figured like when I graduated high school, I would have to like go to college, get a degree, and then go work at a game studio. I just figured that's what people do when they want to make games. But I ended up paying my last 2 years of tuition with my games, and then I realized like I could just keep doing indie stuff, and so I did.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
what got you into wanting to develop in the first place at 14? What were your influences and what were your motivations?
I actually remember the game that made me think I could make games was Yoshi's Island, just because the art style just seemed so crazy to me. How it wasn't going for the same thing other games were. Like it was the crayon style. It looked like a kid made it, and I was just like, I could make games. I could probably do that. Like even though Yoshi's Island is like a masterpiece, and I can't come close to it, but like it just made me feel like it was made by human beings, you know?
I absolutely know what you mean. I'm older than you. I remember when Donkey Kong Country came out, and I was really into drawing and two-dimensional art. Donkey Kong Country came out, I was crushed. I was like, oh no, it's all over. The things I like, the things I wanted to make, or the things I wanted to done. And then Yoshi's Island came out, and I was like, we're back.
Yeah.
It was only like a year later or something, but it was such a relief.
Yeah, I think Yoshi's Island was even a reaction to Donkey Kong Country, wasn't it? Like I've heard rumors, I don't know if they're true, that Miyamoto was sort of reacting to the art style of Donkey Kong Country by going the opposite direction. I don't know
I
if
read
those are
that
true or
too.
not. Yeah.
You know, we'll never know for sure. Just like so many things remain shrouded in secrecy. I was going to make a joke about a court case, but that would be in such poor taste. Oh, I feel sad even saying that. So was Nintendo your favorite company growing up, or was yeah?
Definitely, yeah. There wasn't even any competition in my mind as a kid. Yeah, I still love Nintendo. Like, I'm not totally happy with like the direction they go, but I still think they do amazing stuff. Like, I don't think I'm necessarily their audience anymore, but yeah.
I wonder. They're a mysterious company, probably
Yeah.
the most mysterious, at least to me. And they're the oldest. These guys are not young guys.
Yeah.
They once were like you. They were once, young programmers and young artists making small games for people who appreciated that sort of thing. And now they've been put in this position where they're giants. So I can only wonder what that's like for them. Have you ever thought about what you'd do if you were if you were like the Miyamoto and you had to run, thousands of people and make sure that your company made multi-millions of dollars every year?
I actually haven't thought about that. That'd be like I don't even know. I can't even like foresee a path that would come to that. But like, yeah, I have no clue how I would handle that. I have a feeling I would just retreat. I would just like say nope and like quit.
And there's some people that theorize that that's what's happened to Miyamoto, that he's just like, oh, I don't even know what to do. I guess I'll just tell other people what to do, and hopefully things will work out. And then other guys like Inafune and even Shinji Mikami have gone off and downsized themselves in order to not deal with that management role anymore. So I guess it's possible. But you are on your way up there. You are the headliner of the OUYA.
Yeah.
It was pretty much there's some great games on the OUYA. But Towerfall, from what I can tell anyway, has gotten the best critical response and as just most word of mouth. Everyone I know as OUYA is talking about it and inviting people over specifically to play Towerfall to kind of spread the word about the OUYA and what it can do. How did that feel to be, first of all, how did that come to be, and how did that whole experience feel to be like a OUYA exclusive out the bat?
Yeah. So how the OUYA exclusive came to be was the game was just almost at a shippable state, and well, maybe not almost. It was the art style was completely different, and a lot of stuff was still broken. But I was looking to release it. I was just like, I need to find a release date so that I get this done because I want people to play this. And then around that time, I heard that OUYA was looking for exclusives. So I basically emailed Kelly Santiago and pitched it to her. And yeah, she believed in the game right away, which is a huge credit to her because the art style was way worse. And like, I don't think I even gave her a playable build. But yeah, she believed in it, and they ended up funding it to development with a royalty advance, and yeah, to completion. And yeah, it's been amazing being like pretty much the headliner. I think OUYA caught on pretty quick. Like when it came out and people started like looking for good games, and people found Towerfall, and people sort of latched onto Towerfall as the like killer app, as Penny Arcade said. Then OUYA reacted to that and started calling it that. Then they started like echoing that, and so it just sort of snowballed from there. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and like you said, people inviting people over just to play. That's exactly what I wanted to happen, because like with local multiplayer, that's sort of what needs to happen, right? It has to be like an event, like people have to like put it in their calendar, like let's go play Towerfall on this, like on Friday night, and that's perfect. That's exactly what the game's made for. So that feels amazing.
I feel like it elevates it a bit from just like, oh, I need time, I'm bored alone in my house, to like, hey, this is an event. This is like an important, valuable thing to do with our social time. And as in terms of being a social lubricant, and I'm finding more and more people I know, my age, even younger, they're kind of getting sick of just like, let's sit around and drink and watch TV. There's a lot more breaking out of board games, or breaking out of like tabletop strategy games, and breaking out of local co-op or local competitive video games, and it's wonderful to see that. I've had people over just to play Towerfall myself on the OUYA, and it's been surprising what it brings out in people. You get to know people in ways you maybe didn't think you would before.
Definitely.
Was that something you intended as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely made to be like an icebreaker at parties, that kind of thing, and just bring people out of their shell a bit. I think it's almost like when you get a room full of people like screaming and like cheering people on and stuff. It's almost like a tribal thing. It's really cool. It's
it is.
Yeah.
In terms of the OUYA thing, I don't want to run away from that too late. Were you attracted to the console specifically? You said you contacted Kelly yourself. Were you thinking that would be a good fit for what you were doing, or was it partially financial as well, just to kind of help with the funding and also help with the motivation?
Yeah, it was partially financial, partially motivational, just to have a release date. And the release date synced up really well with mine, like like the period I was looking for. And also, like releasing a new game on a new console. It just seemed to fit really well. Like it seemed like a way to get a lot of attention, which it did. And and also I just like the idea of the OUYA. Like I like the idea of an open console. I think it'd be cool if that ends up taking off.
Yeah, me too. My feeling about the OUYA these days is that people love the idea of it, and they love some of the games on it, but they're still waiting. A lot of people, unfortunately, are still waiting to see it pick up before they commit to it. Are you planning on making more OUYA games from here? That might get people to buy one.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I haven't really thought too much about after Towerfall yet, because I'm still working on it. But I could see myself releasing stuff on OUYA. Like it's not that big of a it's not that much work, I guess, to release something on OUYA. If I make a game for PC, it's not that big of a deal to port it to OUYA for me. Just the way I work with my the tech I use.
So the porting process wouldn't cost you thousands more or whatever.
Yeah, for Towerfall it was pretty simple.
That's good to hear, because I think a lot of games are going to be. I have the feeling that the audience are going to be fairly split, because Towerfall, I'm excited it's coming to PC, but realistically, I probably won't play it as much on PC because I have a little laptop, and I don't think people are going to want to gather around that, whereas the Ouya is hooked up to my big TV, so that's probably going to be my main console for that, and any sort of multiplayer games of that nature. And you hinted that you're doing more stuff with Towerfall, which is very exciting. What kind of stuff are you working on right now?
Right now, I'm actually like this week. I'm kind of on vacation. I'm visiting my parents, but I've also been working. So I actually just finished a new tower. So there's like an ice themed tower now. Alec just sent me the music for it, and it's amazing. We're working on the tile set now, and it has some icy floors that you slip on, and there's a new arrow type as well. There's drill arrows that can drill through walls.
Whoa. How rare are those? Are you going to make those pretty rare?
They're only going to spawn in this tower for now, but you can also use variants to put them on other towers. But yeah, they're pretty powerful. It'll be interesting. I still need to do a lot of testing, obviously, because I've been sort of stranded here. But yeah, I'm excited to see how the testing goes.
So you finished Towerfall for the OUYA. You think, well, I'm probably going to make more after this, or was it a wait and see thing, or did inspiration just kind of strike you recently, or all three?
Yeah, kind of a combination. I always knew I wanted to do more with it. There's a lot of ideas I have. I really want to do a single player mode, but I still need to see how that works. But I was in the back of my mind, I thought like PC version, I'm probably going to want to do a lot of single player content for that, just because it's PC. Like people are less likely to have a bunch of controllers.
Sure.
And there's always just been a lot of possibilities with Towerfall. Like it's the kind of game I could expand for a long time. So yeah, as long as it's profitable, I'd like to keep working on it.
Yeah, that's great. I hope that you do. And how, speaking of profitable, how has the OUYA version done so far in terms of profits?
Yeah, it actually is. It's already paid for its development, which is good. So it's
like 3 weeks. How long has it been out for?
Yeah, I guess about a month, a bit less than a month. Yeah, 3 weeks.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome, especially like on the OUYA, which is a brand new console. It's pretty unexpected. Yeah. So it's already got past its royalty advance, and so now it's profit. It sold about 2,000, well, I guess 2,200 copies now, which is pretty sweet at $15 each.
That's great. Yeah. And to know that it's going to keep expanding. I mean, the OUYA will hopefully be around for a while, and I'm guessing a lot of people are going to start with the most reputable game on it right now, which is yours. So that's great. For people that don't know a lot of games in the past, starting at 14, good. When's the first time you released a game publicly, though? Was that a little bit later, or did you start right at 14?
I released all my games publicly. I was like super proud of my games, even though they were terrible. So I would just like make a thing in like a weekend, and it would like my first game was I took the bike from Excitebike for the NES, and there was like this background that came with Game Maker that was like a piece of crumpled paper, and so the game was Paper Runner, and you were the bike, and you had to like get across this piece of paper, and if you touched anything, it played a gunshot sound, and like a text box popped up that said you died. That was the whole game.
How do you win Paper Runner? I want to win it.
You have to get to the right side of the screen, so you're going from left to right.
So you just got to get there.
Yeah. That was my first, and I'm pretty sure it got no replies on the forum I released it on. People just ignored it. It wasn't even worth commenting on.
Was watching at the time? Do you think, oh no? Were you discouraged that people didn't immediately take to Paper Runner and tell you, like, you're a prodigy, keep going?
No, not really. I just wanted to make stuff. I think, it's discouraging. It's kind of discouraging when people ignore you, but when people hate my games, I kind of like that, because it's just like encouraging to like see other people's opinions, even if I don't agree with them, and just see that they felt strongly about something I made. Being ignored is probably the worst thing. Yeah, being ignored probably is the worst reaction you can get. But it was my first game. I didn't. Yeah.
So from there, do you remember what your next game was after that?
It was a little game called Paper Runner 2.
Oh, how did you change things up? How did you rework the formula for this game?
It was the same game except you could go off jumps and then you could jump over stuff. Yeah, I figured out how to program jumps. That was pretty cool. And then
Any replies to that one? Did anyone? The
I
jumps
don't
are fun.
I don't actually remember. I think I probably started getting replies at that point. This forum is just a bunch of like 14-year-old kids making games, so it's not like like industry veterans commenting on my work.
When did you start selling games? It took a little while, right?
Actually, Towerfall will be the first game that I sell directly to players. I've done a lot of Flash work where I did sponsorships and then later contract work for Adult Swim, where they basically buy the game from me. Yeah, and that was where I started making enough money to support myself.
Was that the how you paid for 2 semesters or 2 years of college?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
Give
that
Up?
was Give Up.
Or was it something?
Yeah, Give Up Robot was my first Adult Swim game.
I saw commercials for that. I was out late watching TV, and I think there might have even been a quote Dtoid on it, which made me really excited. But they did like a funny little robot voice, and they showed your graphics on a big screen, and that must have been awesome.
It was awesome. I think Anthony Birch actually reviewed it for Dtoid.
I bet he did. That's
Yeah.
something he would have done. Love him. Give Up Robot is such a fantastic game. Have you thought of revisiting that series as well, or is it because I assume Adult Swim owns it that it might not be so easy to just pick up and run with it?
Yeah, exactly. Adult Swim does own it now. I did do the sequel, Give Up Robot 2, which I think it's way better than the first one, but a lot of people still prefer the first one. Yeah, which is interesting to me. Yeah, actually, I've thought about just going to them and being like, we should do a third one for like Steam or whatever, but we'll see after Towerfall. It might make more sense for me just to keep making my own stuff.
Yeah, I suppose so. But that would be fun. I'm very attached to that series. That was, I think the first one came out before Capcom tried to bring back Bionic Commando. That's how I remember it anyway.
There was like a wave of grappling hook games around
Yeah, there
the same
were.
time. It sort of mirrors the local multiplayer thing. I wonder, yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
I must be more influenced by other people than I think I am.
Well, I don't know. I think I thought Give Up Robot came out before Bionic Commando. I remember thinking like I was desperate for a new Bionic Commando. I hadn't heard of Grapple Hook yet. I think that was Adam Atom game. I think so.
Right, yeah.
Gravity Hook. I'm sorry.
Gravity Hook. That's the one.
Yeah, that's a good game. But your game gave me what I wanted out of the new Bionic Commando for free, and just on my website, I was very enthralled and thankful for you for doing that. Was that something that you knew you wanted to do for a while? Did you like other grappling hook games, or was it something that just kind of came to you?
Yeah, it just kind of came to me. I never really enjoyed grappling hook games, to be honest. I always found grappling hooks too like clunky. Like the act of aiming a grappling hook, I think, is really dumb for like a platformer. Like I hate in like Super Metroid. I actually don't like the grappling hook at all. How you have to aim it. That's why Give Up Robot is just like always 45-degree angle. Like there's no other way to shoot. I really like that, like just the feeling of swinging. It's just a cool feeling, and so I wanted to do that, but I didn't want to do like the annoying feeling of aiming something like that takes forever.
Right. Well, that's one of the themes in your games is you tend to cut out the pretty quickly. Anything that like slows down the pace or makes you feel like I'm not really sure how to do this properly. I don't see you use too much of that stuff at all. And Give Up Robot, part of what was fun about it is I felt like I was constantly swinging. Like after you get into it, you're barely on the ground at all. So it's just kind of like all fun all the time. I hope people go out and play it. Did that get a lot of plays? Was there any way for you to see how many people had checked it out?
Yeah, there's like a play counter directly on the site. I think it's like almost at 3 million, the original.
What?
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
wild.
It's crazy how much of an audience Flash games have. Yeah,
absolutely. What do you think of how Adult Swim goes about it? It's something that I talked to. We've had quite a few Adult Swim veteran developers on this show, and it's something I think goes under the radar more than I wish that it would, because they're going about game development and getting their games to be profitable and getting their developers to be profitable in a pretty unique way. But what do you think of their technique of funding developers and putting their games out there.
Yeah, I think it's amazing for smaller indies, pretty much. Like for indies, pretty much in my position where I was, where I felt like I was making good stuff, but I wasn't making like stuff that I could sell to players directly yet. Like I don't think Give Up Robot could have stood as a like Steam title, or if it did, it would have been like a very cheap Steam title. Yeah, so I think it's great that there's like an avenue there. Like Adult Swim just provides this place, like sort of the middle ground where you can still be profitable without having to make these large scale games.
And did you approach them, or did they approach you?
I approached them actually. When I made my previous, I think it was my previous game, Money Seas, another platformer. It was a Flash game, and I was shopping it around for sponsors, and Edmund McMillan, he was giving me like some contacts of people to like send it to, because he used to do a ton of Flash stuff. And one of them was Adult Swim, and they turned the game down actually. But I ended up getting a sponsor on Congregate, and then later when I made Give Up Robot, I sent that to Adult Swim, and that's when they took it.
That's awesome. And Edmund, did you know him through Super Meat Boy?
Yeah, Ogmo from Jumper is a character in Super Meat Boy, and I think there was a lot of backlash from like a vocal minority was upset that Super Meat Boy was so similar to Jumper, and so they got a lot of flack for that, and that's how they discovered Jumper. And then and then Edmund, he really liked Jumper, even though, like to his credit, even though a bunch of Jumper fans were pretty much, insulting him constantly, he still really liked Jumper, and so he put Ogmo in the game, and then we became friends through that.
I didn't know that he had made Meat Boy on Newgrounds before he'd played Jumper then?
I'm pretty sure that's the order, yeah.
Huh, interesting, because the similarities are pretty striking.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
Sad red block of a guy. How did you come up with Jumper, by the way? Where did that inspiration come from?
Jumper was, I was playing Donkey Kong Country 2, a classic, obviously, and
oh, sure.
It's like a really hard game, Donkey Kong Country 2, but I eventually got to the point where I was just replaying the hardest levels, and I wanted harder levels, and so I was like, well, I'm just gonna make one because I make her. Jumper's actually the first game I made that was popular. Like it got a lot of replies and a lot of it grew beyond like the forum where I posted it on, and people still play it. It still gets a lot of downloads to this day. But originally, what's that?
I was gonna ask how old you were when you did that.
16.
What? What? That's
Yes.
annoying. I'm mildly annoyed. When I was 16, I crashed a car while trying to deliver a pizza. Started a band called Meatbag that had a song about, being grumpy and needing to buy a new TV, and you were making Jumper. You rat's ass. So
Jumper's
jealous
kind
of you. That's great, though. Yeah.
Jumper's kind of the video game equivalent of Meatbag, though. It's
Oh, I don't think so. I think it's got a lot of. Well, you haven't heard Meatbag, so if you ever hear us, you'll know. But Jumper, of course, is very rough. It's clear you didn't have a ton of money, but the design fundamentals are at the time. I don't remember. Geez, what did that come out? 6 years ago? Is that right?
Yeah, I guess 6-7 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember there being a lot of those, like high difficulty but fair, simple platformers around then. It kind of pioneered a movement that I think maybe N Plus had been around. But other than that, I can't think of any.
I think N was a bit later, but yeah, it kind of was a part of that whole movement, kind of by accident, of like the indie platformer renaissance, I guess. There wasn't really anything with like the short respawn time and the high difficulty, and it was just 100% about level design and like mechanics design. Yeah, like the graphics were completely like you look at the game for 2 seconds and you've seen the whole game, like visually, and the music was all ripped from like other video games, that kind of stuff. But the design was 100% the focus.
Yeah, it's a awesome series. There's 3 of them. No, 4 of them, right?
No, 3 of them.
Yeah, there's Jumper 2, or Jumper Redo.
Yeah, there's a remake. I made a remake of the first one because, well, it's a long story, but I made a remake with a bunch of new levels. And then there was Jumper 2 and then Jumper 3. So yeah, there's technically 4.
Yeah. All fun games. People should definitely go to your website right now if they have to. If they have to choose between listening to the rest of the show, which I'm sure will be great, or playing all these awesome games that you made. I would say the games. You are great to talk to, but those games are fantastic. Oh, and Runman. Oh, how'd you come up with that?
Runman is actually my friend Tom. I worked on that with a friend. It's an old character of his from when he was a kid. So when I made Jumper, he made Runman about the same time. And then years later, we were collaborating, and we had this like platformer engine. We're like, you know what, this feels like a Runman game, so let's just make it Runman. And yeah, it actually took us like 4 years to make that game, but only like 3 months of work spread out over 4 years. Because we would just work on it for like a week and then just not talk to each other for a year. Just the laziest people ever.
Well, I'm sure you were up to other things too, and it was something. How did you feel like Runman was going to be anything of a hit while you were making it? Because I remember seeing it on a lot of sites. We posted about it, and I instantly connected with the character. Part of it, now that I'm thinking about it, was it gave me a Yoshi's Island feeling right away. But like the parts of Yoshi's Island where you just like turn into a race car and you just have to go for it. All of a sudden, it's completely intense all the time. Was it something you thought might resonate with people, or was it strictly just for fun?
Oh, it was strictly just for fun. We had no clue if people would like it or not. The game was like really, it still is. It's a really messy game. Like it's sort of, of all my games, it feels the most kind of like slapped together. But I think that's part of its charm. It's just like the whole game is about just not caring, I guess, and being happy. And so the game was kind of developed with that mentality too.
Yeah, and I think people can relate with that. Was that one that people said they hated? You said before that when people hate your games, you find it interesting. Was Runman a game that anyone like vocalized this intense feeling of dislike for?
No, I think Runman's a really hard game to hate just because it's so happy and like, yeah, there's not like, even if you don't like it, you just kind of stop playing it. But like, a lot of my earlier games people hate. Like not a lot of people, but there's always vocal people that just pop up and are like, this game sucks for whatever reason. And like when you make really difficult games, people get really passionate about hating it when they do hate it. Like they'll be like, why did you make this so hard? This is stupid. Like
is that something you've ever done intentionally? Like thought, I'm going to make this part of this game. I know I'm going to get some of those troll comments from this. They're going to be like, I hate you for what you've done. You're terrible at your job because I'm bad at your game. Therefore, it's your fault. Have you ever done that on purpose?
Yeah, I actually remember the original Jumper. There's one moment or one part in the middle of the game where the difficulty spikes like way up out of nowhere, and then it goes back down a bit and then continues rising. And I remember doing that on purpose. I remember being like, it would be funny if this one level was just really hard. And like, I still get people, that level's like infamous. It's level 3-4. I still get emails about level 3-4. It's awesome.
I felt like, along with a really tough but fair platformer craze or upsurge, there was also this like, I'm going to torture the player and I'm going to think it's funny and they're going to think it's funny. Upsurge for a while, and I personally like to see more of that. Like, there was a huge upsurge in talking about Desert Bus, which was a game included in the Penn and Teller, I think Sega CD ROM. There's still people talking about that game all the time. What do you make of that relationship that players have with the developer, where they get intentionally tortured but seem to like it? And think it's funny and respect them for it. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple groups of games like that. Like there's games called Masocore, I believe it's called. I'm not sure the exact definition, but there's like a couple styles. I think there's like the style I do, where it's meant to be fair, just really challenging, and it's about like challenging the player to improve and get past like a crazy obstacle. And then there's another group of games for like Who Wants to Be the Guy, or I Want to Be the Guy. I want to be the guy in like Desert Bus, and well, Desert Bus is kind of like that, but where it's more about just like something coming out of nowhere and killing you, and it's just funny. It's just like, oh, it's funny that that apple fell upward and killed me, even though it's an apple. It's not like it impaled me and blew my brains out, and it's just an apple. And like, that's not a kind of game I'm really interested in making, but I still find it funny. I enjoy playing it for a little while until I until I get stuck for too long. But yeah.
Yeah, I respect those games, especially Sayabon Action. I don't know if you've played that one.
Right. Yeah. That's a
uses
good one.
the Cheetah 2 music. Yeah, with the cat. But at the same time, it's a kind of design that it is more like designing a joke obstacle course than it is like a game that was meant to be exploited by the player, like to learn new mechanics and really get into it. You can only go so deep with a series of physical comedy gags, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of like a lot of music, experimental music that's just meant to be like grating and like almost like annoying to listen to on purpose. But people are into that too, because people are into lots of stuff, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Whereas
Well,
like just
for
making
me,
a really sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, whereas just making like a really hard, fair game is like just trying to make something that's really difficult to be good at. But when you are good at it, it's going to feel really good.
Well, I get a sense of satisfaction when I can get through Sayabon Action, but it is just because I memorized the pattern, and it's funny because real life is like that. Like when I suddenly just get a flat tire, it's not because I played life wrong. It's because, sometimes life just suddenly sucks, and that's what I get from those games that are about having a terrible time. But video games can be better than real life, and when you make a game, it makes me feel like if I have luck, but mostly skill on my side, I can excel regardless of what limitations I start out with, which is why people should play Towerfall. I don't know if we've talked enough about what actually happens in Towerfall. I want to make sure people have a strong sense of that, so they get excited for both and the PC versions. So set us up. Tell us what happens in your average game of Towerfall.
Okay, so when you first start playing Towerfall, it's like really chaotic. It's a game about archery, and it's 4-player free-for-all archery by default. So it's just 4 people in a tower, and you spawn. You're instantly just looking around at where your enemies are, and you're gonna make like 1 or 2 quick moves, try to kill them really quick with your arrows. It's all one-hit kills, so it happens really quick. Within like probably 30 seconds, the round will be over, and only one guy will be left alive. And then it scores the round, you get points for your kills, and then goes to the next round. So it's just like really quick, pick up and play, chaotic, like Smash Bros-esque fun. And then as you get better at the game, there's a lot of like advanced techniques you can learn, and it becomes more about performance and like reaction. So you can start dodging, and you can start catching arrows out of the air, that kind of stuff. When you start getting good with the power-ups, you can get bomb arrows, and then you can do stuff like planting bomb arrows just in the right spot so the explosion will hit people, like stuff like that. Laser arrows that you can bank off walls at people. Yeah, so there's a lot of depth, but it's also very pick up and play friendly for just chaotic fun.
Sure, and there's some resource management aspect to it as well, because you only start off with 3 arrows, right?
Yeah. So you only have 3 arrows, as you said, and your arrows like stick into walls and corpses. So when you kill a guy, you'll want to like run up to his corpse and pull the arrow out, that kind of thing. Because they're a very limited resource. And having a lot of arrows is pretty powerful because you can just sort of spam. You can sort of brute force your way through if you have like 6 arrows.
One of my tricks is I'll shoot an arrow. If I have 2, at least 2, I'll shoot an arrow towards a player who doesn't have any, and like make it look like I missed, like, oh, sorry, and then they'll go for the arrow. Like I'll fake them out and run the other way, like, oh, I guess I'll do something else, and they'll go for the arrow I shot, and then I'll turn around and kill him. One of my tricks.
Yeah, the bait and switch.
Yeah, exactly. But they can, if they know that's what I'm going to do, they won't go for the arrow and instead will wait for me to make some sort of mistake. There's a lot of beyond just your average fighting game thinking. No offense to fighting game fans out there, but fighting game thinking is often about social relationships between you and the other player, being able to fill in your combos properly, and a little bit of rock paper scissors in terms of high-low attack and whatnot. But Towerfall, you're thinking about a lot more. At least I am when I'm playing it. I'm thinking about the arena as a whole, the spawn points. Like you said, a little bit more like Smash Brothers, but
Yeah.
more streamlined.
Yeah, it's more positional. Like it's more about where you are in relation to the other player and where like your avenues of escape and like where all the arrows are, that kind of thing. And it's more. I don't know if it's more because I'm not like a pro fighting game player, but it's very much about thinking what is the other player thinking, like what is he expecting me to do, and then trying to either like just do what he's not expecting or try to make it so that even if he is expecting it, it's still going to work.
Yeah, I think that, in my opinion anyway, in a fighting game, I'm constantly thinking about what the other player's going to do, but there's only like 3 or 4 things they might do. They're going to stay put, they're going to do a projectile, or they're going to jump at me, or they're going to wait for me to do something. Towerfall, there's a lot more I feel like might happen. There's a lot more places in the arena somebody might go. There might be a lot more options for them in terms of waiting for power up to spawn or waiting for me to make a different mistake in the environment. So it minimizes the amount of variables you have to worry about and maximizes the amount of variables that still could happen that you need to be aware of. It all made sense. I was right on the cusp. I didn't quite get there, Rex. But it seems like you kind of know what I mean, though.
Yeah, I think I kind of know what you mean. It's like even just positioning in Towerfall has a lot of nuance to it. Like there's so many variables for just like for which platform. Like if you're standing on a platform, there's a guy below you. There's like high ground is an advantage, but then there's screen wrap advantage. There's also like, does he have a clear shot? Could he hit you with an arrow? Does he have arrows? And it's like, and then that's even with there's like, as soon as there's like a treasure chest, then it's like, oh, you want to be near the treasure chest, but then there might be arrows in the environment. You want to be near those, like all these kinds of things that can change it on the fly.
But in terms of like the variables in terms of what I can do with my skill, it's like, am I going to shoot? Am I going to aim okay? And am I going to jump okay? And am I going to catch an arrow okay? I only have to worry about those 3 things. I don't have to worry about if I can pull off that 12-hit combo properly and dial it in at the right speed, blah, blah, blah. So what I have to worry about, what I do, skill-wise, is pretty minimal. But in terms of strategy-wise, what I can come up with, the variables are endless.
Yeah, there's very few moves, but very many strategies, pretty much.
Thanks for summing what I tried to say. 5 words. That's typical Matt Thorson to sum it up simply and clearly instead of blah, blah, blah. So yes, everyone's going to want to know because an offhand comment was turned into front page news, which is the way of video games. You happened to mention, oh yeah, Nintendo approached me, Microsoft sent me an email, talked with somebody face-to-face at Sony about Towerfall. Things are going good, but everyone's like, things are going good. When am I going to get the game on my blah, blah, blah? So is there, are you, but on the PC version, thinking real far ahead, do you think you might take the PC version and put it on other consoles other than the OUYA? And if so, how long do you think it would be until that happened?
I have no plans yet. I'm really focused on the PC right now, and hopefully Mac and Linux if I can do it. For consoles, like I do have exclusivity with OUYA for console exclusive. So pretty much after that's up, I'll start thinking about it. And there's no use even planning right now. But yeah, there is tons of demand for the game. Like everyone seems to want it, so that's awesome. I want as many people to play it as possible.
Who do you think wants it the most, if you had to guess? If I were you, I would be like gauging that just out of interest in how my product is affecting people. I'd want to know who likes this the most. So out of the Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, both news sites and fans, who do you think has been most vocal about wanting to?
Oh, news sites and fans. Oh, Nintendo fans they really like picked up on that story. There's been like at least 6, I think, Nintendo-specific websites like latched onto that quote and were like, Towerfall creator talked to Nintendo at E3.
A man talked to a man. Pretty much. So why do you think that is, that Nintendo sites anyway, maybe Nintendo players and readers of their news sites, why do you think it's that segment that's latched onto it so much?
Yeah. Well, the Wii U does seem really local multiplayer focused. That's one
Mm.
possibility. Like, Nintendo Land is like a local multiplayer game pretty much. Um,
Hmm.
and their online stuff isn't, as fleshed out as other consoles, so they're also focused on it for that reason. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and also maybe just because they just launched a new console. They're the only ones with the new console out, so they obviously have
Hmm.
the worst library right now, just because new consoles tend
Sure.
to have more limited game libraries.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so there's a kind of a hunger for that. There's
Yeah,
a space open people's libraries for that, and I tend to think that games that are about simplicity often do better, or at least have a more vocal, excited audience in the Nintendo, because a lot of
yeah,
Nintendo's design philosophies are around simplicity, whereas Sony, I like The Last of Us a whole lot, but that's not all that simple.
yeah. It's not a game
I
Nintendo
guess
would make.
no, probably not. Probably not. But then on the other end, Sony is really, at least this year at E3, they've really changed their public face in terms of
Yeah,
what kind of games they make. They spent that whole like half hour, it felt like, on games like Ho Hokum and
yeah.
Mercenary Kings and stuff like that.
They've
So,
been
so
super indie friendly.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and not just indies that are going to potentially score them the next Journey. It's not like multi-million dollar
yeah,
HD graphics indies, just like anyone. From what I've gathered, Shane and Nick at Sony are literally talking to anybody as long as their developers are passionate about making a quality product. They're entertaining all ideas. So
yeah.
if you had to guess, where do you think, where's your heart telling you to go next? After the
Uh,
OUYA exclusivity is over. Just your heart. It's not a commitment, you know. Like,
just
who
my
would you
heart.
date? Yeah,
Who would I
yeah.
date?
Yeah, who would you
Well,
date?
I
Not
think of
marry.
all the companies, this isn't even, I'm not talking about Towerfall here, but just
Mm,
just in terms of how they're treating indies, most
mm,
attractive right now is Sony, I would say.
mm,
Like they're just very open right now, and like Nintendo is as well.
mm.
But Sony's just been very proactive, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm not surprised to hear that. From what I've gathered, Nintendo is very. They're beyond neutral. They're like actively trying to engage people,
yeah,
but they have fewer guys and also fewer money, less money to throw around. From what I've been told, and
yeah,
feel free to say no comment on this, but Sony is like, yeah, we will, like OUYA did for the month exclusivity. Sony is willing to put their money where their mouth is, where Nintendo is more likely to say, we'll help you, but we can only help you so much when it comes to the finances. So for a guy like you, I'd imagine that would make a difference because you're making money, but you're not Miyamoto yet. You don't have a huge company bringing the bucks for you yet. But
yeah,
wouldn't that be fun?
yet. That's a generous yet. Uh, I
Well, you
don't.
never know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like I could see for future games, especially publishing with Sony. Um, like I think in general they usually only fund games that are coming to Sony platforms first.
Hmm.
So so yeah, for a future game, I could see that as a huge possibility. Like I said, like Nick actually came to my house to play Towerfall with me. That's
Oh,
that's pretty cool. Um, Stuff like that, yeah, they've been really nice and really. It's like with dev kits and stuff, they're really open and yeah, they seem like a good company to work with.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's all pretty new. I mean, when I first met Shane at Sony, wasn't that long ago? I think it was, I want to say 2.5, 3 years ago. He was working at Ignition, and he was like helping to develop El Shaddai, which was a game from Ignition that was directed by the art designer for Okami. So he was
Oh
in a
wow.
completely different space. But just recently, they got him over at Sony, and it's completely changed the equation for them, which is fantastic. I'm still
Yeah.
waiting to see the Sony loyal audience because for so long Sony has kind of built up this, we make games that look like movies. We make Uncharted and
Yeah.
Heavy Rain and just going really far. Like we're pushing tech in new directions. We're pushing for realism. And just in the past like year and a half or so, they're still doing that, but they've also lobbed onto that. Like, and we also make Ho Hokum. We
Yeah.
also make ride around on a magical snake in a multicolor land and collect little guys and feed them to shrimp, whatever happens in that game.
What's
It's pretty
interesting to me
neat.
is how much it's changed. Like when Xbox Live Arcade first came out, like Xbox was the indie-friendly console,
Mhm.
and now it's just like flipped. Like it's crazy how quickly stuff changes. It makes me
Yeah,
wonder where we'll
absolutely.
be in like 10 years. Like it's gonna be
Yeah,
insane.
or even 5. It's so hard to know.
Yeah.
It was so sad. Monaco, which everyone who's ever played it that I've met really enjoyed it. Didn't sell all that well on Xbox Live Arcade. Uh,
Yeah,
but the huge install base of the Xbox didn't add up to
that's
me why
interesting.
that happened. Yeah, it's pretty sad. Oh well, I'm sure he'll be fine.
It's doing amazing on Steam, I'm pretty sure. So
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
yeah.
That Andy Shots. Speaking of Andy Shots and other developers, you know a lot of developers. At least it sounds like you do. Are there any that are making stuff right now that you want people to know about? Any plugs or shout-outs come to
The
mind?
main ones are Samurai Gun and Barabari Ball. Like those
Mhm.
are I guess just because I'm making a local multiplayer game, I've been like sort of trying to absorb as much local multiplayer as I can.
Mhm.
So I'm really focused on that right now. Yeah, other than that, I've been really too busy to be enjoying too much stuff.
Sounds like a good kind of busy though. It's a kind where you feel like, an idea you have on Sunday, within a week you might be able to fully implement that.
Yeah,
And feel like you've really changed your game up.
yeah, definitely. I'm actually like I'm working on a lot of balance changes as well for Towerfall, and that's
Mhm.
stuff where like I was at Evo last. It feels like 3 months ago, but it was like last week, and I've already implemented like all the balance changes I had scribbled down in my notebook since then. And so we'll be like I'm getting home tonight to Vancouver, and then we're going to test them all, and then I'll be iterating on them. It's like a really fast process right now for Towerfall.
Huh, interesting. Is that best changes you made observing people at different levels of play, how they went about winning their matches and exploits they might have found?
Yeah, there's not much in the way of exploits. The game's pretty solid, but there's a few things like uh, I guess just to name specifics, like there's a shield power up that lets you take another hit. And for new players, it seems balanced really well, but for professional, like competitive players, it seems a bit too powerful. So I did some balance stuff there. I did some more stuff just adding more layers of depth or attempting to the dodge mechanic. I mean, so you can cancel dodges and stuff. And that's stuff that's going to be completely invisible to new players. I'm just trying to add more
Huh,
depth for competitive level.
interesting. Sounds like a wave dashing sort of technique.
Yeah, yeah, that's what a lot of people compared it to. So
Oh, cool.
I'm excited
That
about
sounds
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Have you thought about celebrity cameos? Because that's all the rage these days. If like how Ogmo was in Meat Boy, would you want to put Meat Boy in Towerfall or put other characters from other games in Towerfall?
Yeah, for that, I'm actually thinking no. Not that I don't love other indie games. Like, I would love to make a game with like a Spelunky cameo or a Meat Boy cameo, but for Towerfall, I feel like it's not a good fit. Like, the world seems to, or at least my vision for the world is that it should be really cohesive, and I don't want to muddy that up with
Mm-hmm.
stuff from other worlds. Like, even though the game is kind of goofy and like uh, doesn't take itself too seriously, I still feel like it would disrupt sort of the mood of the game.
Hmm. Yeah, I could definitely see that. And before I move on, because we have questions coming in, which is very nice. Thank you for seeing the questions. But first, I'm very curious about what kind of single-player stuff you might do in Fall, because as much as
Yeah.
I love the multiplayer, I'm a big fan of single-player in general, and your track record for just amazing game design and level design is so huge that as much as I love Fall, I did kind of feel like, but I want them to make a single-player game for you. I want it all. So what kind of ideas do you have for how to go about a more campaign-based single-player mode for Towerfall?
Yeah, right now all my ideas are sort of in the vein of kind of Give Up Robot, but more story. So like a
Mm.
lot of like you'll have the world map just like in versus mode, and you'll go to towers just like versus mode. But each tower will be like a certain amount of levels, and they're each like single screen challenges. So very level design based, quick levels, kind of like Meat Boyish, and more like my older games too as well. Yeah, I just want to keep it relatively simple for single player. Do do what I'm good at for this. Um, yeah, I don't want to do like a Metroidvania style thing. Like it would be kind of cool, but I'm not sure it would fit Towerfall to have
Hmm.
like
And
a lot of people are suggesting I do like an overworld where you run around and then like Metroidvania style like upgrades. But I think for Towerfall it makes more sense to keep it simple and pure.
yeah, I would imagine in your position, you have the power to just make a new game if that's what you wanted to
Yeah.
do. Or to take those design ideas, which would be fun, you could just make up a new character in a couple of weeks and say, okay, Metroidvania is not going to be Towerfall, it's going to be this new guy.
Yeah.
Which I hope you do, but how many games can you make at once, basically?
Yeah, basically I just want to make Towerfall right now, just because I want to get it out on PC so bad, as quick as possible. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
interested, though. I wonder why people are thinking it should go Metroidvania, because that's totally different than anything in Towerfall. Maybe it's just
yeah.
because it's such a smartly made game that they want a smart Metroidvania. Maybe there's kind of a gap in the market for that right now.
Right, maybe it's also like the game gives off serious like Zelda vibes, and like I think
Mm-hmm.
people are thinking along those lines. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Zelda 2 specifically, a lot of people compare it. Like whenever I mention single player in like comment threads or forums, people instantly are like, "Oh, like Zelda 2, you could do like a Zelda 2 thing."
Huh, interesting. I
Yeah,
wouldn't know that. Well, it does give a Four Sword vibe.
yeah,
But Zelda 2, I don't think you even get a bow and arrow in that.
no, no. I think it's just a side scroller Zelda-ish game. Like people are drawing more from the theme of the game than from the design. I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, there's a lot more I want to ask, but I feel like a jerk for not asking the questions which came in. Thank you for asking them. P. Bergmar asks, I am almost done with a puzzle game that I've been making. People who have played it so far like it, so I might actually try to sell it with a low price tag. Do you have any advice for how or where I should try to sell it? It's a 2D puzzler inspired by Lolo on the NES and similar games. Oh, Lolo. That's nice. Yeah, that makes me good. So if you had just made a new Lolo-esque puzzler all of a sudden, how would
Yeah.
you go about trying to put it out there right now?
I think if you're ready to sell it, like right now, and no one really knows about it, the way to do it would be to just sell it off your site at first, and just try to build a momentum. Like push as much like for press as you can. Like do stuff like if you can, like do like interviews like this if you can, like anything with the word,
Hmm.
and then
Do you,
hopefully at some point you'll get on Steam and stuff like that.
do you find there's any disadvantage to when you launch a game and like if a game, let's say you were to put it out in this month, but you could have like fixed it up a little bit more, you could have waited. Is there a disadvantage to putting it out when it's not quite ready and then patching it later? Does that give you a bad reputation, or do you think that there's any disadvantage to starting small on your site and then eventually getting to Steam? People think, oh, I've already that game. He just sold on his site, so it must be very good, and therefore it gets ignored when it's on Steam. Is there any of those considerations to take into consideration?
I think the latter one of like selling it on your site first. I don't think there's any concerns there. Like this,
Mm-hmm.
the audience on Steam is so massive compared to the amount of hits you're going to get on your site. Even if you have like a huge website, it's nothing compared to Steam. That I wouldn't worry about that. For like releasing stuff early, there's this. My friend Shane did this talk recently in Vancouver called the 50-50 rule, and it's like when your game is ready, when you can show your game and you're not embarrassed by it, like when you can make a trailer for your game, it's 50% done, and then you should like polish and tweak and just keep testing and work on it for the other 50% development, and that exactly mirrors what Towerfall went through. Like the design of Towerfall has been pretty close to done, like probably 90% done for like 6 months. We just worked on it for another 6 months and like redid the graphics, did all the music, like polished the design very small steps at a time, that kind of stuff. So yeah, the game might not be as done as he thinks it is, but
Mm-hmm.
but I'll take his word for it that it is almost done.
And did you in Towerfall that the graphics weren't done before, or was that something that only hit you after you had gotten a sense of exactly how it played?
Well, I did the graphics myself originally, and they were like a lot more NES inspired. I don't know if you've seen screenshots or anything, but you played as like these fat elves. It's very different. If you played it now, it would be shocking to you to see the old graphics. But they weren't very good. And then when the design started really clicking, I was like, okay, the graphics need to be better because the design is good, and so the graphics need to be as good. And so that's when I got a mini boss or a husband and wife team from Brazil that my friend Chevy introduced me to. They're amazing. They redid all the graphics for me.
I didn't know that. Husband and wife graphics team from Brazil, and they mini boss.
Yeah, Pedro did all the pixel art, and Amora did all like the concept art for the characters.
Awesome. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
More questions rolled in. I can't ignore them. I would be a jerk if I did. Jacob God, I mean, says, Ro, you ever plan on making? I think he means do or
he's speaking in the Scooby-Doo voice.
Ro, you ever plan on making for Runman? Do you want to revisit those ideas anytime soon?
Well, Runman's not mine. That's my friend Tom's.
Sure.
I'm not sure if he wants to do another one or not, but I would love to see another Runman. Jumper, maybe? I don't know. Jumper's cool because it's so pure. It's just mechanics. So it might be cool to do another one, but like I'm more like right now in my like where I am creatively, I really want to focus on building worlds more. Like I really like obviously I'm still always going to have a huge focus on mechanics just looking at Towerfall, but Towerfall also has this huge world built around it. And that's something that's been interesting me more and more lately. So and Jumper, I'm not sure there's much room for that.
Yeah, there's the little spiky balls.
Could maybe develop their character a bit. Yeah.
What if someone were to come to you and be like, "Will you let me make a Jumper? I'm not gonna, make any money off of it, or all the money will go to you, but it's time to let all of your games kind of live beyond your creation, and other people want to make like official versions of Jumper that you could decide whether they're good enough. You would have kind of the executive last word on it, Miyamoto style. You can see where I'm going with this. What if it just came to you and were like, we want you to let all these games continue past what your vision was for them? How would you take to that?
There's actually been quite a few Jumper fan games, actually. I think it's mostly because the game is so simple. Like, it appeals to people who are learning design. Like, they're like, oh, this is a manageable design problem I can use to get better at design. So there's been a few. I'm actually hosting a few on my website, but I don't know if the download links are anywhere. And they're pretty good. Like, there's some good ones. There was also a fan game of Untitled Story, another one of my games that never got finished, but it was pretty massive. But yeah, I like the idea of fan games. I'm not sure if I like the idea of people like selling them, but I like the idea of them existing. It's really flattering. But like, I would still rather, like, if someone came, whenever people come to me and they're like, hey, can I make a Jumper game? I'm always like, yeah, you can, but you probably shouldn't. Like, like, you would probably make something better if you made your own thing, is pretty much my point. Like, yeah, I think people don't give themselves enough credit for, like, they just want to use Jumper because it's an easy starting point.
Yeah, it's intimidating. They know the character is well known and well liked. But at this token, they must really love Jumper and want that world to kind of continue in whatever way their imagination strikes them. So again, I hate to harp on it, but I just can't help but be curious. If they were to be like, okay, we'll sell it, you'll get 90% of the profits, and I'll just get 10. Would you be like, it just doesn't feel right? Or would you be like, well, whatever?
Yeah, I would probably be like, whatever, but it still doesn't feel quite right to me. So I'm not. It's hard to like say. Depends on the person, I think, a lot too.
Oh sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd imagine it would have to be someone. Right. The game good, person good. But you're busy with so much other stuff anyway. I'm sure it's not a huge consideration. R. Xanadu asks, with the current Steam sale and other frequent digital sales for PC, do you see a positive or negative effect to the overall revenue for indie games?
Oh, revenue? I think it's no question positive. Like every indie developer I know who's in the Steam sale is making a crazy amount of money. So I think the real question is whether it's positive for like perceived value for indie games. Like if you only buy indie games when they're on sale for like $2, that might make indie games look like bargain bin and stuff. But AAA games are on sale too, so I don't know. That's a complicated question.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's something I've been thinking about all week after Earthbound came out on the Wii Virtual Console.
Right.
I was shocked. Yeah, I don't know if we've talked about that or if you know how much I've been talking about. A lot of people were angry that it was $2 more than their average Super Nintendo Virtual Console game. And he said, not only will I not buy it, but I'm going to like go out of my way to try to get other people not to buy it, and this is a terrible business practice on Nintendo's part. Where my opinion was, or my feeling anyway, not necessarily contrary to theirs, but certainly different in that, to me, Earthbound is worth way more than $10. The value of it should reflect how much it costs, and I'm totally okay with that. Whereas they're coming from a place of the cost should reflect how much it cost for the developer to put it out. So it's like, do you look at how much value you get from the game? That's how much it should cost, or do you look at how much it costs to put out? Where do you stand on that? How do you think games should be based in that way?
Yeah, I don't know. The cost to put out seems weird to me. That you would price games like that seems too like I don't know, too businessy. But like Earthbound, like specifically Earthbound, like I saw your article and I really liked it, and like
that's nice.
and just like I haven't actually played Earthbound personally, which I know is like a crime, but like and I plan on buying it, but just the amount of like cultural impact I know it's had, like the amount of developers I know personally who it has influenced is crazy. Like indie games specifically, it's very influential, and so like I'm comfortable with the price definitely. I think like I wonder like people always say they're judging prices based on like the quality of the game or like, but if Earthbound was released today, it would go for more than $10. I don't know. Again,
it's like 80 hours
is,
long or something.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, there's also the issue of like the less you pay for something, the less you perceive it to be valuable too. And like Nintendo is probably just saying, well, there's probably a lot of reasons why they did it, but one reason might be like this game is worth $10. Like it's a $10 game. Like the quality is there. So. And
they've backed it. They made a trailer just for it. They never do that for virtual console games.
Yeah.
They did a TGI trailer with all these new graphics in it, and they released the original strategy guide online for free to download a PDF version. So they've like really backed it, and yet people took that as as a slight to them. I think that they would ask for $10 for their video game. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, I think it's mostly like I just charge like with Towerfall. I just tried to charge exactly what I think the game is worth. Like that's just that's like the only real way, the only honest way to price the game. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wonder how Nintendo arrived at the price, but to me, it seems worth it.
Yeah, and I guess that they would think it's gonna sink or swim, and they'll find out if they're right in their guess as to what their product is worth by it or not. Yeah, it's a funny thing. A guy can be an expert basketball player, and all it costs for him to become an expert basketball player is him doing what he likes to do, and eating that bad, and getting enough sleep. So, but he'll get paid $10 million a year because what he offers to the world, his basketball playing, brings in money and is also, for whatever reason, really valued in our society. Dennis Rodman, he just had to not do that many drugs and still dog. And then he just got all the millions, and nobody complained about that. But Earthbound, people are complaining about. Anyway, enough about that. Dan Branny, how do you nail the mechanics so well? That's a great question. It's like, how good at your thing you are good at? Do you have a list of rules that usually work, or do you approach every game differently? That is I didn't mean to make fun of you, Dan Brandy. That is a good question. Do you come at each genre, because you have tackled a lot of different genres, with, you think, the same kind of problem solving around design, or do you put on a different hat every time you take on a different genre?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same. I'm worried my answer to this isn't going to be very useful, but it's pretty much the same process where I take like a feeling, like I start with just a feeling that feels like, and by feeling I mean like in Towerfall it's like shooting an arrow. It just feels cool to me. I'm like, that feels cool, so I'm going to focus on that. And then I just try to, as you said before, trim away the fat, like minimalize it to find sort of the essence of what feels cool about it, and just try to accentuate that. Yeah, I think that's pretty. It's mostly an intuitive process though that comes with practice. Like I think I've just done it a lot, and so I'm getting better at it. Yeah, I think most of design for me is intuitive. Like I'll try to rationalize stuff, but at its like very core, it comes down to like feeling, which is something you can't really, like I can't tell you why shooting an arrow feels good to me, but it does.
And I'd imagine you have to trust a lot that what feels good to you, that your brain is wired in the same way and your hand-eye coordination is wired in the same way, that other people who go through the same experience are going to have the same feeling you had. And when they do, it must feel amazing, like you are on the same page with all these people, and when they're suddenly enraged at you, that's got to be a pretty, initially I'd imagine that's pretty disappointing when somebody's like, I'm mad that the arrows didn't fly the way I wanted them to. Blah, blah, blah. But then from there, it must get interesting to see where exactly the differences are between you and the players.
Yeah, there's some differences, like I do a lot of testing, and there's some differences where I want to get rid of it. Like if someone's like trying to, a big thing in Towerfall is people would ledge grab and they'd always want to drop from the ledge grab, but they wouldn't know how to do it. And so that was just like annoying. And for me, that was never a block because I knew how to do it. But I think I only knew because I made the system. And so it's kind of like trying to see the game as if I didn't make it, which is hard to do sometimes.
Sure, I'd imagine it's very hard.
Yeah. But when people are upset about, what's that?
Oh, I'm sorry, you.
Oh. But when people are upset about things that they're just like, oh, I wish it worked this way, but it doesn't because I didn't want it to, I don't really care about that. Like when people are like, oh, I wish you could charge up the arrow and shoot it, I'm just like, no, like I don't want that to happen. Like that's not Towerfall. You should play a different game. Like that kind of stuff doesn't bug me really.
Yeah. I'd imagine it's even kind of fun to just be like, huh, interesting. That's what you'd like in a game?
Yeah.
No, not gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly.
and still find success with that. Well, it's staying true to what you wanted to do while still trying to make it palatable and understandable and something that other people can enjoy at the same time, which is why you're succeeding so hard. That's my guess. Harrison Barton asks, you were talking earlier about how you used to post your games on online forums. Someone currently making games but who is having trouble promoting them. What forums or app PR do you suggest try out? It's maybe been a little while since you've had to concern yourself with that, but are there any places in particular you think help people get their games noticed?
Yeah, I think at first you just want other developers to play it because they'll give you really good feedback. So stuff like TigSource, TIGSource.com, there's a forum there. Depends on what software you're using. If you're using GameMaker, go to the GameMaker forums, Unity forums, that kind of stuff. For promoting, that's a more interesting thing. Like, I would say research like journalists, and if there's a journalist who you think would actually legitimately like your game, then send it to them. Like, just treat them like a human being. Yeah, I think that's probably the way to start. Because if you can find a journalist who actually does like your game for the sake of your game, they'll probably like help you champion it at least a little bit, and then it'll spread from there.
Do you remember anything with you with any particular game? Give Up Robot and Anthony Birch were a good fit, for instance, but is there any other examples you can think of that happening?
Yeah, I'm a bad example for this because I did Flash stuff and I never really cared about marketing, to be honest. Like I just sort of released it. With Flash, usually you get paid up front, and so you don't really care. Like, I do care how many people play my game, but for Flash, it's different too because your audience, like a lot of them, aren't even going to care about your game. They're going to hit the back button within like 2 seconds and stuff. And then, so promoting was never really a concern for me until now for Towerfall. But by now, I already have like a lot of contacts just because I've been making games for so long. So I'm actually not,
so just making
not a
games
good person to ask.
Well, no, I think your way of going about it, starting young, staying with it, putting out stuff that's very interesting and well made, so people get to know you over time through word of mouth. People, this is just my opinion. I wouldn't expect you to agree with this, but people feel good about playing one of your games and trusting that it's going to come out well, and also just ally themselves with you in their mind. They're like, oh yeah, that guy's been making games for so long, he really means it, he's legit. He's not just doing it because he thinks it's going to be a quick thing. He's been doing it forever, and you're the kind of developer that people want to support, people who are really in it for the right reasons. So
I think so too.
I hope so.
And people just get attached to like your style. Like people like, oh, this is a Matt game. Like they can see my authorship in it, and they like that. Like after you played like 5 of my games, it's just cool to be able to spot that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough to. Do you have a? It must be hard to see from the outside looking in, but do you have a guess as to what your style is? Like, what is it about your games that make them different than a Vlambeer game or a Bo Blythe or developer? A little bit of. Sometimes your games remind me a tiny bit of Niphilus, but not too much.
Right.
Just a tiny bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I guess the things I would say might be different from what someone who actually has that perspective would say, but like, for me, it feels like my games are almost always focused on level design and like in space, like spatial mechanics. Like, like where stuff is in relation to other stuff is always a big deal in my games. But yeah.
There's other little. There's a sense of humor to them that I find anyway. That's pretty specific to you. It feels like there's just something specifically funny about the fact that Jumper's eyes are asymmetrical.
Right.
Ogmo,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Ogmo. Do you remember the you decided to make him look slightly deformed?
He was originally, for like 90% development, he was just a red square. And then and I was like, well, I should put. I think it was actually like half an hour before I released the game. I was like, oh, the player should be playing as a character, not a box. And then I was like, I wonder what he could look like. And then I was like, it'd be funny if he was just really broken. Like the only thing he's good at is jumping. And that's pretty much. So I just tried to make him look completely broken. And that was the only way I could do it with my art skills at the time.
Yeah. Another thing in your games is like E4, you design by intuition a lot of the time, just how it feels, if it feels right, and acting off those intuitions. You get a feel for that in your games, and you're also rewarded in a lot of your games for playing that way. Like Jumper, you have to just feel it's the right thing to do. If you sit and wait, Towerfall, there's a lot of larger planning you can make, but feel each moment out and act from muscle memory and instinct in order to survive. So that's a thread between them all, I suppose.
That's one of my favorite parts of just games, and even life in general, is like flow and like just doing stuff creatively in the moment, like improvisation. So yeah, it makes sense that is what I designed for, I guess. Like with Give Up Robot, the option, like you can only shoot the grapple at 45 degrees, like. So you don't have all these options. You're not like stuck sitting there like, oh, should I shoot this way? You're just like, oh, I just gotta do it. Just gotta line up and do it. And like Towerfall, like the same. You can only shoot the arrow on the 8 like angles. So it's like there's no decision to be made. It's just line up and make a snap decision. Like just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But you unfortunately, I'm putting words in your mouth. I have to watch that. You are a very inspired person. You come up with a lot of ideas over the past. You just kind of constantly. It sounds like you're constantly coming up with something new you want to add to a game or a new game you want to make. That's how it seems from the outside. But you don't get to just act on inspiration all the time. You have to go through this polishing process too. Is that worse for you? Is there a part of the process you enjoy more? The kind of eureka part of making a game versus the like get this fine-tuned just right making a game?
I think it's a balance. I think there's like you'll go through like a period where you just make a bunch of stuff, and then you sort of go through a period of trimming away stuff that doesn't quite fit and polishing and tweaking. And it's sort of like giving yourself a break. It's like you go through like the waves. Yeah. I think it's a nice process of like if you were to do only one, you would get exhausted. Like near launch for Towerfall, I just had to do a ton of menu work. Like I just didn't have an option. I just had to work on menus for like a week straight. It's like, well, that sucks. But like you power through it, but it's not a good balance. So like ideally it would be like both, like alternating.
Sure, like doing some eureka moments, getting reprieve from them by like polishing them, and then going back to just like generating new things, then polishing alternatingly. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Have you had a moment where you felt like your ideas weren't as good? Have you ever been kind of shaken to the point where you were like, I'm not sure if I should come up with ideas anymore. I just can't. Maybe I can polish other people's ideas. I can do that okay, because that's like technical craftsmanship you can kind of measure, but just in terms of the quality of somebody's inspiration and whether the ideas that just come to them are any good, that's totally objective. So you don't have a way of knowing if you've really got it. Have you ever been put in a position where you're like, I'm not sure I have it anymore, or maybe I never did?
No, I definitely have. I think like the most frustrating time for me is always between projects, and like I guess because what I do is make games, been what I've done forever. So when I'm not making games, I feel useless. But like the year before Towerfall, that entire year, I pretty much just spent learning like new programming stuff, learning new tools, building tools. So I wasn't making games. I was doing like little jam games, but nothing really went anywhere. Like they were all stuff I threw away. And that was a really frustrating year for me. But at the end of it, I came out with Towerfall, so that's it came back. But yeah, it is really like frustrating and scary when you haven't released something in a while, when that's like your whole identity is making things.
What was the game that released before Towerfall?
That would have been Fat Wizard. Or I did a Ludum Dare game, 48-hour game called Rah Rah, which is a two-player. You play as stars, and you have planets orbiting you, but all you can do is move, and you're trying to hit each other with your planets by like moving to make them swing around. So that was just a 48-hour thing. And then before that, it was like a year before that was like Fat Wizard, which I made with my friend Chevy.
That's a fun game.
Oh, thanks.
And it went over pretty well, didn't it?
I think it did all right. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was really different for me. Like it's more casual than most of my games, which is cool. It's fun trying to design in that way.
Huh. I'm trying to figure out where the moment might have happened in that process where you were like, oh, I guess I should just polish my skills for a while. No new ideas happening.
Well, mostly I was. Oh, sorry, but mostly I was. I was getting sick of. Well, not getting sick of, but I felt like I was ready to move on from Flash. I felt like I had done all I wanted to do in Flash games for a while. Sure. Mostly because my games already kind of feel weird for Flash games. Like Give Up Robot 2 is pretty huge Flash game. Yeah, and I felt like I just wanted to sell something directly to players, and like something downloadable that you can't play in your browser. Because people play games differently in their browser.
Oh, absolutely. They approach it as though I'm supposed to play this for 45 seconds. I'm not looking for something that's necessarily like really precise because the Flash might not run very well on this computer that's not very good. So I can definitely see how your games were more tailor-made to be running, on their programming and not in Flash. So just so I have it clear, was there ever a time when you were thinking like my ideas aren't so good? Or did you stay kind of inspired the whole time? You did have that? I wonder what brought that on.
Yeah, I don't know what brought that on, to be honest. I think I was working on or trying to work on a big project for that year that didn't make anything, and it was like a big game that was supposed to be more story-based and less mechanics-based, and I think that's just a bad idea for me to start with story. Because it's really hard for me to get motivated when all I have is like a big story and not like a feeling, like a good player feeling. So it ended up like going in circles with that game for months and eventually scrapping it, which felt really bad. And
Was that a story that you were writing that you were kind of inspired to make?
yeah, it was a really like personal story, kind of like just based on like different things I was going through at the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that you were stepping out of your comfort zone in a way and approaching narrative first, but you maybe weren't getting the same feelings of like, I know what I'm doing in that because it was such a new thing, and then trying to work backwards from that to get the design in. And I could see how that would be difficult. Have you ever had a game that you were really, I hate to stay so depressing, but I figure we should be depressing for a little bit and then end really nice because people love that romantic comedy when they're like really sad and then they make up at the end. Have you ever had a game like do really poorly and you were really disappointed with the fact that people didn't understand it or people weren't receptive to it for whatever reason?
No, not really. Like some of my games have done worse than others. Like I think Fat Wizard and Planet Punch both just weren't as popular as my other games. It didn't really bother me a whole lot. Like in Flash, I feel less invested with Flash games because the audience doesn't feel like as good of a fit for me. It feels like I'm making games for like a small portion of the Flash audience that are going to get it. Whereas with something like Towerfall, I feel like when I release Towerfall on PC, like I feel like there's going to be a big audience, potential audience there. And so if it's not well received, it's going to hit me a lot harder. But like in Flash, it's like 2 million people are going to click it, but I only expect like a small percent, like very small percentage of that to actually like get what I'm trying to do.
Sure. So you go into the Flash development cycle knowing, well, I'm going for a small part of a large audience, and that's okay. That's what I want to do, and I can succeed at that. But now that you've kind of stepped up to consoles and to PC, the stakes, I imagine, are higher for you financially and personally, and also just the potential for it to be a huge hit is bigger now, which is exciting.
Yeah, it is super exciting.
I think it's going to be a huge hit. I would like it to come out on all the consoles, and everyone will buy it ever. That's what I want. Yeah, hopefully that.
I like that situation.
I'd imagine it couldn't happen overnight, but a game like Towerfall, I think that it's going to have legs. I can imagine people discovering it 2 or 3 years from now, and it's still going to be as relevant in terms of where it can fit into their life today. Whereas, if you do a retro remake, or there's nobody making 2D platformers right now, and you come out with one, it's the only one, that's great. But Towerfall, unless how to start ripping off your idea left and right, and there's a million Towerfall clones out there, which I suppose could happen. But as long as that doesn't happen, I think you're going to have a solid place with that game for a long time. That's my feeling.
Like the game is really designed for longevity, so I hope that's the case. Like pretty much it's really inspired by like all the local multiplayer games I played that I played for like 1,000 hours each, and like that's one of my favorite parts of them is like how timeless they are. So.
Yeah, Teams 2 came out 7 years ago or something like that.
Which game?
Team Fortress 2. Did you mention that you enjoyed that?
Yeah, I've played over 1,000 hours of TF2. I've played it since beta, and that's an old game. Like it doesn't feel like an old game, but it is.
When did that? I'm trying to remember when that first came out. When it was actually.
I want to say like 2006, but that might be. Maybe.
Man, that's bonkers. And I saw a commercial for it on Adult Swim the other day. They've got Venture Brothers characters in it, and I'm seeing Heavy and the Scout and stuff like that on TV. It was really it's bigger than ever. Man, those guys. I'm happy for them and for you. How much time do we have left in the show? I think we have 1 minute left in the show.
Oh, man.
That was just my internal clock, my circadian rhythm telling me I'd talk to a stranger for an hour and a half. And what a great time I've had. Hopefully I've done right by you, Thorson, because you only deserve the best.
Well, thank
you. Okay?
Yeah, awesome.
All right. I tried my best. I always wish I... What? Say that again?
Oh, I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Oh, good. So did I. I wish I did better, but I certainly could have done worse, I imagine. People can follow you on Twitter. You're Matt Thorson, so there's 3 T's in a row on Twitter. That's right. tweeting some things. You've got a unicorn avatar now.
I do. It's beautiful.
Oh, it's very nice. Yeah, yeah. Then you're tweeting about what you're doing in Towerfall a whole lot.
Yeah.
That's where people are getting the news stories from, so people can follow you there to keep up with that. And all your games are at matt-thorson.com?
Nope. They're at mattmakesgames.com.
I was wrong. I'm sorry.
It's towerfall-games.com is what you're thinking of.
That's where I'm wrong. Towerfall-game for just Towerfall.
Yeah,
and
and
makesgames.com for all your other stuff.
Yeah.
I did it?
You did it. Gold star.
Me, you can follow me on Twitter at TronNots, and you can listen to Subhomes later on iTunes. You can download it there, or watch the actual faces, while you listen to them on YouTube, on Dtoid TV's YouTube channel. So check all that stuff out. Anything you want the people to know before we go, Matt?
Nope.
Nope. We did it!
Yay!
We did it.
It's good talking with you. Thanks, Matt. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.